I genuinely feel like our future was sold and I want to just give up. I'm a 31-year-old Sparky and I would consider myself a pretty simple man. I want to just have a family home, raise some rugrats, work till I'm 60 and hopefully see through a retirement. I have no vices, don't drink, don't smoke and don't gamble and don't have any expensive hobbies. Despite all this, the basics of life have become so expensive to the point that I don't think I'll genuinely ever own a home. The clock's ticking and I'll never be able to have kids because of a lack of financial security due to housing. I just don't understand how our society ended up like this. Some of the older Sparkies in my crew 50 have multiple houses, spend and drink like drunken sailors and have a more spendy lifestyle. For the exact same job, they live like kings while I'm stuck forever as a pauper. It feels to me what I imagine feudalism was like and I'm just a serf. This whole situation is rotten to the core. I just want to live a simple life and be a good dad, but I feel I was robbed of the opportunity because of greed and speculation. It feels like the only way to make it in my generation is if you have wealthy parents or earn money that most of us will never see. How did we as a society make it so essential workers can't afford the simple things in life like housing? Not all of us can be lawyers or doctors, society couldn't function that way and I'm sure we need Sparkies around. It certainly feels like a lucky country, for some but not all of us. I agree with you OP. The opportunities the older blokes had, many buying nice suburban blocks and even acreage outside Melbourne on a single income, all while just set and forget on their career is astounding. As long as this country keeps treating housing as an investment rather than a basic human right, it will only get worse. If we didn't buy 7 years ago, there is no way we could buy today. Our currency is continually being debased, so fund the lavish lifestyles and retirements of the asset class owners. If you don't own assets in this modern society, not just in Australia, you are essentially just a warm body that's used to prop the system up. It's pretty disgusting, honestly. To anyone commenting, stop whining and get on with it is allowed to share his frustration and vent. It's a frustration many people share. I'm glad that it's really easy for all you to hand out advice like move and take the family with you, mate. That's easier said than done. If you're gonna throw out quality responses, like at least have the decency to include what you did to improve your circumstances. Mate, all I can say is start your own business. The money in trades at the moment is insane. You'll live a lot more comfortable. I diagnose you with living in Sydney. You can never be a serf in my eyes, King Crown. It gets easier if you just accept it as reality. My situation is different. I have a disability. I'm on a pension. I'm just trying to do the best with what I have. I won't be wealthy, ever. It is what it is. The rich get richer, politicians get richer and are corrupt, huge companies pay no tax and just take and take and take. Now it's catching up with this generation, and it's this generation and the ones after which will pay the price. Hey, your post is pretty well written and I agree with a lot of the points you make. But for the record, don't be so quick to dunk on doctors. Many of us are doing it just as tough as Sparkies. I'm a 26-year-old doctor with $60,000 in HECS debt, and I'm pretty confident that you are making more money than I am and probably working less hours. If you think you got it tough as a Sparky, then imagine the other 80 of jobs out there that don't pay as well, lol. Whereabouts do you live? Sydney, for example, may not be the place for you and your future generations. I was a Sparky in Sydney after leaving school, and while you can live a decent life on a tradie's wage, it's tough building wealth. 3 of my friends are electricians working for themselves and they are on $250K. Small businesses are dumb money. Australia is the best country in the world to be an electrician. Every other country is full of migrants doing the work and undercutting everyone. It's by design. I feel for you, OP. I was lucky to buy a decent-sized house at 22 in an affordable area. Now 8 years later I'm about to put it on the market for double what I paid for it. If I was 5 years younger, there's not a chance in hell that I would even be able to afford a tiny 2-bedroom unit in this area. The only reason I've been able to get ahead in life is through property prices skyrocketing, which is a sad realization to have. Exact same in my industry. I'm a radiation therapist. All the people who I have worked with over 50 own multiple houses, and everyone I know under 35 can't get on the property ladder, without extreme sacrifice or a handout. I hate it here too. The hard truth is that you need to be absolutely exceptional and can't settle for normal. You're a Sparky? Start a business and scale so that you can earn 5x more to achieve the same kind of life that those older co-workers of yours enjoyed. It's totally unfair and messed up, but it's the cold hard truth. We have a K-shaped recovery. Income has been eroded by inflation and assets have ballooned. I believe the correct government response would have been to reduce CGT exemptions, reform super, and potentially a broad-based land tax on state government level. This would essentially be a tax on the wealthy and brought inflation down, which may have reduced the need for the RBA to increase rates. Have you run a budget to track your expenses and looked into opportunities for increasing your income OP? While not enough to buy a house by themselves in Sydney, most of my tradie mates at the same stage of their career to you are making in excess of $100,000 and are not doing it rough. You can otherwise have kids without buying a property, so I'd set those thoughts aside. I know many Sparkies about your age and they're raking it in. What's happening with your budget? Maybe you should move to a regional area. If you're in one of the major cities, there's always demand for your skills. What's your salary? You might earn more than a lot of the white-collar people your age that you mention. My pop recently passed and the man had so much stuff. He owns 4 or 5 properties in the town he lived in, including a farmhouse with 157,000 square meters complete, with a runway and hangar from when he had his plane. Owns commercial property from his old town he lived in. They definitely had more opportunities. You're an electrician, get a job in mining and Dido or FIFO and live regionally. If you can't afford to buy a house, then you have a budgeting problem. I don't see how you can have a continuing society when you impoverish the generation after you. All I see in the future is the continued devaluation of money, poverty, and societal breakdown. I hope the boomers live long enough to see what they've created. You say you have no vices. As a 31-year-old Sparky, you should be earning more than me. Unless you already have a wife and kid on single income or just started working, you should have already had enough to purchase. This means you either need to accept fate and do at least one of the following. Wife gets a job. Cut down on spending wassing. Search for a cheaper place to live. Ask for promotion, look into starting your own business. Those older Sparkies have had a few more years than you in wealth building. Don't compare yourself to them, aspire to be them without the drinking and gambling problem. Do you mind explaining for your finances a bit more? What is your income and what is your expenses and what do you want to buy? I have friends who make average wages that have properties in Sydney. I know Sparkies and plumbers who work for others and they get well paid. Well enough to be able to afford a roof over your head and luxuries. They are young too. They go on so many holidays it makes my head spin. Maybe you need to relocate or find another employer or start your own business. I'd be shocked if there was no gold mine to be found as a Sparky. The future isn't promised. Just because you want a nice simple life, you aren't entitled to it. At various times in the modern comfortable life, things like war, natural disasters, government collapses etc. have occurred. You happen to be living in a relatively quiet and stable time, and have the luxury of complaining about how terrible it is to not be as rich as your older compatriots. Tomorrow Australia could go to war, and then you'll wish you could go back to the horrible time you weren't able to buy a house at 31. Yeah, the lucky country title meant it was all luck and not good management. So that's still basically true. Sadly, we all need to get more politically engaged and stand there watching the bastards. We are traditionally very apathetic and quite socially conservative. Gee, every Sparky I know is pretty darn comfy regardless of generation. If you're living in Sydney, then no, you won't have a good standard of living unless you're on 200k plus. Time to leave Sydney and take your folks with you.